Good evening, YouTube friends all over the world. This is Jeff from Astroscoop. It is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome. And tonight is my live stream number 18. So tonight will be all about Taurus, the sign of the bull. So today is April 26th, 2024. And we just ended the Aries-Taurus cusp period, which I talked about last week. And I just posted a follow-up video for the Aries-Taurus cusp for a follow-up to last week's video. Very, very short video. And some of it has material from last year's video, if you didn't catch that, from a year ago. So Aries-Taurus people that were born between April 19th and 24th or 25th, Aries-Taurus cusp, check those videos out. I have those live, the new one and the one from last year. And I believe I might even have a third one, or an older one. But there's also Aries and Taurus videos that you can check out. So welcome. Hi, Carolyn. How are you? Hope everything is well. And I just want to start by saying it's almost May. It's funny because my daughter, there's that song, I'm not sure what boy band it's from, but it's that song, It's Gonna Be May, or It's Gonna Be Me, or whatever they say. So it's a meme, humorous thing where it's like, it's gonna be May. So in the last day of April, that's what all the kids sing, is it's gonna be May. So my daughter's singing that, and she's already doing that, which is very funny. But I wanted to say that I'm so happy with the progress of this channel, because for weeks there, I was stuck in the 490s for subscribers. We finally hit 500. Now I'm over 600. So that happened very quick. So the last month has been a really nice little bump in growth, and I appreciate all the views and all the viewers. And I mentioned the last couple of weeks that my two countries that have been watching me the most are India and Russia, along with the United States, but India and Russia primarily. And that continues to be the case this week. And then I'm going to add a third country, and that's Pakistan. So again, no rhyme or reason to YouTube, but I'll take it. I thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad there's some momentum, and Astroscoop is catching on a little bit. And the more people that tune into this live stream, tell your family and friends. I'm very open to constructive criticism and open to what you guys and gals want to get out of this. This isn't, I have a guideline every week, but this isn't set in stone. We're going to talk about Taurus, which can be one of the most rigid signs. I love you, Taurus, though. Taurus peeps are good peeps. But we're going to talk about that. But, I have my convictions, but I'm not completely fixed as far as what we do each week. So please comment. I notice a lot of you have been commenting on older videos. I'm getting a lot more people that are commenting on the cusp videos from a year and a half ago, which is great. Those videos seem to be really catching on. So if people want me to talk more about cusp, we can do a live stream just about we can talk about all the cusps, things like that. So please keep the comments coming. I've gotten a couple comments that are constructively critical, which is useful. They're civil, which is great. But everyone on YouTube that wants to grow their channel, no matter how big or small they are, we're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and we're not going to please everyone. That's not the goal. So I have to be myself, and every YouTube creator or video person or whatever they call themselves should be themselves, and they will vibrate with certain people, and with some people they won't. So that's all you can do. But I really thank Pakistan, India, and Russia, especially, and the US for the growth lately, and I have been doing some marketing in trying to promote my channel a little bit, and a couple videos in particular. I've been doing a little bit more marketing, so that is helping, and I will continue to do that the rest of the spring and summer, and hopefully by the fall, we can get these live streams where there's more engagement, and I can really figure out my audience, what you want to see, what you want to learn about, or what you just want to talk about. Current affairs, celebrities, negative stuff. There's so much dark negative stuff in the news. All this stuff about P. Diddy and just that's crazy stuff. But it's interesting, and it's really interesting to astrologers, tarot people, psychics, mediums. All this stuff is like fodder for everyone because we all tune into it, and then depending on what kind of techniques or disciplines we use, we have certain feelings and or intuitions about these things, and then we put them together, and sometimes it helps our work, and sometimes it's just wasteful. So you have to protect yourself. You have to sift through. We have to be kind of like a Virgo. Out of all the signs, kind of be like a Virgo and sift through. Use the sifter to get all the junk out and keep the flower that you want, or keep the berries that you want, and get rid of the the particles and the junk, because there's a lot of that misinformation and all that stuff going around in the news. So we're going to just try to stay positive. And also, just a reminder, I say this usually at the beginning, it's weekly live streams here on YouTube at Astroscoop 3801. So like my name on X is just Astro_Scoop, but here it's Astroscoop 3801. The live stream's at 7 p.m., which it is now, Eastern Standard New York time. That's the time that I construct each week's chart. This is tonight's cosmic weather, which we'll talk about later. And also let me know if any of you want me to do like a specific, if you want me to spend most of the hour on one specific celebrity, maybe that's really trending, or like Frank Sinatra, or Marilyn Monroe, or Elvis, or someone living, someone that's just prominent, that is interesting. I'm also open to that. So the weekly live streams, and then I usually drop a video between Friday or Saturdays. There's a weekly video. And then tonight's live stream is usually just an extension of the video that I just did, or part of the video that's coming up the following week. Like my video next week will be a new Taurus video, which will have some of the material that we're going to talk about tonight. So this is just beautiful weather. You can see here, I wasn't completely prepared. I failed to charge this candle. So this one's probably going to run out soon. But this is the first time I had this candle burn out on me, and I forgot to charge it. Couldn't find the cord. We're doing some renovations in our house, and it's an absolute mess, and we're misplacing stuff and everything. So looking at the sunset over there, the west, it's beautiful on the East Coast here. Sunset is getting later and later. I think now it's around 7:40. So we have about another half hour till the sunset. It's just starting. Oh, it's so beautiful. Super, super chilly still. I was recently in Canada a couple weeks ago, and Canada was super chilly, but the weather was beautiful. But of course, it was quite chilly. But these mornings here and the nights actually feel similar to Canada, but it should be warming up soon. Okay, so looks like we have one or two people in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you. Even if you tune in for a couple minutes and I bore you, and then maybe you come back to see if I'm talking about something different, or you're like, if you've seen a couple of my live streams, you know that we go through everything about the sign, or the period we're talking about. And then my favorite part at the end is all the celebrities. So you might be interested in like just the celebrities kind of thing. So if you want to get this on the replay afterwards, or you don't feel like watching now, you can just, when it's done, usually those last 10 or 15 minutes, I'm talking about the celebrities. So you can just scrub and just go up to like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever, and just do that. Or if you're interested in just the meat of the sign or the period, that's the early part of the live stream, which we're going to talk about now, which I do every week. So this is really, really fun. And a beautiful shout out to my daughter again. My daughter drew this for me really quick about an hour ago because we were all running behind. This week has been so busy. And I just barely made it in time in preparation for this live stream. I almost didn't have the poster ready, and my daughter almost didn't have this ready, but she just finished this an hour ago. And there's the beautiful bull. It's interesting that she did red, because red is more for Aries, you know, the Aries ram that she drew. So each week my daughter's been drawing some kind of symbol for the period or sign that we're talking about. And I'm not much of an artist, but my daughter's seems to be developing a beautiful talent. So I told her that I would shout her out. Thank you very much, sweetheart. Wonderful. All right. So let's get into it. So like I said, April 19th to the 24th or 25th, we just ended the Aries Taurus cusp. So today's the 26th, which begins the true Taurus period, going from Aries Taurus cusp to Taurus 1. So now, oh, I forgot to put it up there. So now from today, from the 26th until, or 25th, 26th, until May 2nd or 3rd is the Taurus 1 period. So one way to look at, so Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac, Aries is the first. And I talked about in the last 3 signs what we had, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, which ends the zodiac, which are, it's like a quadrant of wisdom because they're the oldest signs. So if you look at it in terms of a life cycle, Taurus is the second part of the cycle. Aries is like the infant or the baby. Now Taurus is kind of like a big kid. So whereas each Aries week is growth in terms of the Aries energy coming up onto the cusp, and now we're very early Taurus. So we're into raw Taurus earth energy, which to me is kind of like a big kid. And that would be maybe like a 9 or a 10-year-old, maybe 9, 10, 11-ish for big kid. And it's Taurus, as we know, is the bull or the cow. And you could look at, when you look at mythology and you look at other ancient civilizations that revered the bull or referenced the bull, there was a lot of it. And it's, you know, the bull was talked about as being fierce and gentle and fierce. So obviously that's the bull. But also there's that cow. There's the more peaceful or serene cow part of Taurus. So Taurus is deep earth. Taurus is heavy earth. There's a lot there between the bull symbology and the cow. And the bull and the cow is sensation. So Taurus obviously is a very tactile sign, in touch with their body, and they get very much in touch with Mother Earth. And I've never known a Taurus person. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever met a Taurus person that didn't do something with their hands. Now, you could say, well, we all do something with our hands. We all have to put something together or fix something or draw or whatever. But that's not what I mean. I mean, there's a very pointed interest with Taurus people, men and women, to touch, mold, manipulate things. And, you know, Taurus is the sensation. Taurus is the body. So Taurus is Earth, as I mentioned, and the ruler is Venus, the planet of love, affection, social urge, sociability, and disposition and demeanor. So all of us have a Venus sign in our astrological charts. So no matter what our sun sign is, our Venus sign gives an impression, it gives a demeanor on how we are socially and how we are in love, especially more romantic or personal relationships. But a Taurus person, their Venus in their chart is even more prominent than a non-Taurus person because that's their ruler, and the Venus and Taurus planet is going to color how their sun sign operates. So the Sun and Taurus person is ruled by Venus in something. Now, that's always an interesting thing to me with Taurus, because Taurus people can be incredibly loving. Both Taurus and Libra being ruled by Venus. The Venus in Taurus makes Taurus people very sensual. You know, there's anyone that knows, if anyone's dated or married a Taurus person, man or woman, no matter what their level of attractiveness physically, you'll know that they had a natural, most likely, unless they had afflicted Taurus planets, they would have had a natural attractiveness, an ease, like an easy attractiveness to attract people, like a gentle, not kind of magnetic like Scorpio or a Leo, like where a Leo or a Scorpio is more arresting and kind of draws you in quicker. Taurus is more relaxed, and Taurus attracts people and magnetizes people kind of quietly like that. But you'll know, if you've known a Taurus person or dated a Taurus person, you'll know how sensual they are. Super sensual. It's one of the nicest qualities about Taurus, especially a positive, evolved, secure Taurus. It's wonderful, is the sensuality. And that's courtesy of the Earth and Venus. So as I mentioned, it's like a big kid. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in terms of the life cycle of the 12 signs, if Aries is the baby and Taurus is the big kid, it's like elementary school, maybe third, fourth, or fifth grade, where kids are starting to get into struggles with other kids. Compromise is very important. Compromise is a huge lesson for Taurus people. Huge. Now, I'm not saying that Taurus, that you don't know how to compromise. It's more so not willing to compromise. So there's a difference. You have the capability or you have the skill, but you may not be willing to compromise. So, you know, every chart has different indicators that could be difficult with themselves or difficult with others, depending on the chemistry. But there's a compromise lesson there for kids in school, and then defense, sort of forming their personality. Their personality is now formed, and it's more solid and formed than like a Pisces or Aries. Pisces ending, Aries starting the Zodiac, and then Taurus starts to solidify the personality. So that's why any of you that have children, you'll know that around 7 or 8 years old, your daughter or son has now formed their personality. You know, not so much at 5 or 6. I mean, they might have had a strong personality, but it wasn't formed yet. So around 7, 8, 9, there it is. And so Taurus is about defense. You know, Taurus is not necessarily an offensive or aggressive sign like the bull. And with big kid, being a bigger kid, kids are more conscious of their stuff. Like, what's mine? Whether it be a little more into clothes. Obviously, 9, 10, 11-year-olds in this day and age are now getting into technology and tablets and starting to use tablets and phones, which is amazing because obviously we didn't do that back in the day. And so there's pluses and minuses to that. But Taurus with the defense, you know, it's like Taurus is Taurus people would probably say that they're a lover, not a fighter. I think if you ask most Taurus people, they would say in a charming way or a calm way, I'm more of a lover than a fighter. But they might also say, don't push me to a certain limit. Don't goad me. don't prod me, because if you do that to a bull, even a peaceful cow, at some point, that bull or cow has a line that you've crossed. So that's something with Taurus that we'll be talking about over the next couple weeks. So that defense and stuff. So Taurus being the second sign of the zodiac, it's the first earth sign. But the first three signs, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, form a quadrant in the tropical zodiac that is more I. It's more not necessarily selfish, but it's more I-oriented. Whereas like the last three signs are more outer, more community-oriented or other. And then the signs in the middle are a combination. But Taurus is the second sign, and it's still a young sign in terms of the zodiac. So Taurus people, because they are maybe on defense, and they're very into their stuff. And any of you, if you are a Taurus or you know Taurus people in your family, you'll know, especially if they have more than just Sun in Taurus. If they have other planets in Taurus, like Mercury, which is communication, or if they had Venus, which is love nature, you'll know to respect and maybe not touch their stuff. Let them have their space for their stuff. Now, that doesn't mean all Taurus people are possessive of physical things. That doesn't mean that. And in fact, that I was going to talk about a little later, we'll mention it, in the Babylonian civilization, the Babylonians worshipped the bull, or the sign of the bull. And in fact, they looked at the bull, the Babylonians looked at the bull in more of a spiritual light and not just physical in terms of the cow, physical sensuality or the Venus. So they looked at them as physical, but mostly spiritual. And Taurus has a spiritual component to them. Taurus has a very spiritually creative component that Taurus can develop when their lower selves or their lower needs are balanced and they become mature, evolved. And a big thing with Taurus is security. So we'll talk more about when we get to the summer, we'll talk about the sign of Cancer, and that security is a huge theme for moon children, for moonchild people. But for Taurus, it's also security, but sort of in a different way. But with the Taurus people I've known or coached, there always seems to be a thread. Now, the Taurus cusp people, like the Aries Taurus cusp, and then what we'll be talking about in a couple of weeks is the Taurus Gemini cusp. They're interesting folks because I can see the Taurus in them, but they're also more dynamic and energetic because they're on the cusp of Aries and Gemini. And those Taurus people tend to be able to transmute or kind of get over obstacles a little better, and they're not as stuck as maybe a true Taurus, depending on the rest of the placements of the chart. But true Taurus people, like this week, and then of course next week as well, when we get into Taurus 2, is true Taurus is, again, you have to look at Venus. There's other things to look in the charts, but it's can be very difficult for Taurus people to not get stuck with something. Now, sometimes it's a good thing because Taurus is incredibly determined. We have structure here. Taurus teaches Aries. Taurus takes the energy of Aries and becomes a storehouse for it. So all that raw energy and ideas of Aries now get implemented in Taurus. And Taurus can get it done, where sometimes Aries can't. Aries doesn't have what it takes to follow through and get it done. But Taurus, almost never will Taurus not get it done if they want it to happen. So structure is big for Taurus. Taurus is one of these signs that some people call lazy, but lazy is subjective. Your definition of lazy and my definition of lazy and how we were raised by our parents about or if a teacher called us lazy, or a sports coach or a music coach, what's lazy, right? Some people are workaholics, and then anyone that's not a workaholic to them is lazy. Um, now, if someone's playing video games for 24 or 36 hours on the weekend, and they don't go to the bathroom, skip meals, and they're in their chair all that whole time, which a Taurus person could do that, maybe that's a little lazy. But it's all in the eye of the beholder. So they get structured. There is strength to their determination, but they can also stop it. Taurus can just give up or stop it, and that could seem lazy to some people. But they have their systems. Taurus people have a system. Taurus people can appear lazy to other people that are more dynamic, that are more communicative, that are faster, that are quicker, or that think on their feet more. Taurus doesn't always trust that. So, but Taurus people have a system. They do. Taurus planets have a system. Taurus is getting things done in this quiet, plodding way. When you think that nothing's happening, Taurus people are step by step by step. They're getting it done. There's no doubt. And it's often the systems and structures often into the financial and artistic arenas. So, banking, brokerage, houses, financial planning. Obviously, that's great for Taurus, but also artistic. Taurus is great, like I said, with the hands and tactile. I think of like masonry people that do walkways and fences and sidewalks. That's so Taurus to me. I'm sure if you looked at a team or a small company, you'd find some major Taurus there. But definitely financial Taurian people usually have a natural financial flair for it, a good sense of financial success and artistic. But here with their systems, Taurus can be content with just doing masonry and just doing clay outside, and that could be enough for them. For other people for other Taurus that might be a little more intellectual, they might need a little more than just doing something with their hands. They might want to be the boss. They might want to be the construction foreperson, or the head salesperson, or the head winemaker, or the head certified financial planner, or public accountant, or something like that. Because Taurus is a money sign, and Taurus usually has a natural appreciation of that. Now, you really got to look to Venus in the Taurus person's chart to look for how they handle money, and whether their Venus is in an impulsive sign or not and has aspects. I've known many Taurus people born this week and the following week that have had Venus in Aries. So their Taurus sun is ruled by Venus in Aries. Now, in my opinion, I know super spiritual people don't see anything as good or bad, and I respect that. I am spiritual myself, but super duper spiritual people, and we all know them. Some spiritual people refuse to see anything negative, and I don't necessarily agree with that or subscribe to that. I think we are living in the real world. We live in a heavy, mundane world, which Taurus can appreciate, and there are clearly positive things and negative things, and I think it's important to know that every sign has potential for positive or negative, and every emotion that we feel has potential for positive or negative. It's okay to label something negative. That doesn't mean it's taking away the essence or the beauty of it. But we can't be, there's some practitioners out there that just believe that everything is positive. And I don't know if that's part of the secret philosophy. You got to think positive. Absolutely. You do have to think positive. You want to attract similar vibration. You want to attract similar energy. But as Taurus would agree with, I think Taurus wants to keep it real. So let's honor Taurus. And I don't think you would meet a lot of Taurus people that would just be positive, just to be positive and be fake about it. So I think, is this a time to be positive in this world of all this danger and all this weird stuff happening in our country and in the world? Yeah, we should be positive, absolutely. But not at the expense of realizing what's going on around us. And I just think that's an important thing in regards to Taurus period. So Taurus can be very stubborn. This is raw degrees, early Taurus, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 degrees, early Taurus. Again, stubborn, I'm not saying stubborn is necessarily negative. All the Taurus people I've known or met or even heard about, most of them have been described as being stubborn by someone. However, any of us can be stubborn. But with Taurus, there's a reason, I think a reason for Taurus. Now, Taurus people may not like this, but the essence of Taurus energy being early in the zodiac, insecurity. There you go. That's kind of the secret, I think, of Taurus. I could be wrong. If you disagree with me, leave me a comment. I would love to know your take. The Taurus energy, the raw Taurus energy, is often very insecure. And Taurus people will be very diplomatic because they do want peace and they are lovers. Taurus people are lovers at the heart. They can be very loving and very supportive, very earthy. There's a lot of beautiful, wonderful qualities about Taurus people. There really is. But when Taurus people are off or they're feeling insecure, look out. It's just an enormous sign. It's a sign that has reserves of power. Unlike Aries, where most of Aries' power is flowing out, it's like a continuous, it's like the water valve to your main master bath in your house. That main water valve is always going because you always need it. You're flushing the toilet, you're brushing your teeth, you're maybe getting some water, you're giving your cats or dogs water. So it's always going. It's not like it's always flowing. So that's Aries. That Aries energy is always going, coming and going. But with Taurus, the energy gets consolidated. Sometimes it's being used like almost to zero. It's like nothing. And then Taurus will, boom, I'm going to accomplish this. I'm going to implement this plan. And then, nope, boom. And then everything comes back. And they're always trying to reconcile that. So Taurus people, if you are feeling insecure about things, you have to, it's just my opinion, you have to work on yourself. That's the only way. You have to work at it. And if you're not willing to do the work, Taurus people can be very hardworking, but when it comes to themselves, not necessarily hardworking, if that makes any sense. So, stubborn yet diplomatic. Definitely lovers. Values and worth are huge with Taurus. Taurus people tend to have good values, and they tend to value things that are substantial. They like substantial people in their lives. They like substantial food and drink and luxury and good times. I've never met a Taurus that didn't enjoy good food, music, wine or beer or whatever. I've never met a Taurus that did not enjoy that, probably more so than the average person. That's very, very vital to Taurus mental health, is for Taurus to have a good time with the Venus affairs. And Taurus expects appreciation. So when Taurus planets are not appreciated, they often are bewildered and don't understand why. And that can contribute to their insecurity, I think. So Taurus, sometimes you give, in your mind, you're being so generous and supportive and giving, and you're not feeling the appreciation back, but maybe you don't need it. You don't need it every time. If the person you're giving it to at least acknowledges the goodness that you're giving them at some point, but you don't need it every time. So maybe try to be less attached to expecting that, and not geared to fight. So the values and worth and expecting that appreciation, Taurus really, I think, is a sign that's not geared to fight. When Taurus is pushed to their limit, Taurus can have a scary temper. So Taurus people also, I've noticed Taurus people physically are just very strong. I've known small Taurus people that are just, I knew a couple of kids in high school that were Taurus. They were skinny little kids, but boy, were they strong. Just physically very strong. I also had a friend who was way less than me and shorter than me when I was growing up, and he was all lean muscle, incredible. He was like, you couldn't move him, couldn't physically move it. He would just, so, that there's no doubt they're not geared to fight, but Taurus will stand their ground if they're pushed to their limit. I don't think Taurus is not a sign you really want to push to the limit, because they store so much, and some of that's negative, that they're not releasing the negative. They're not releasing it in doses. The opposite sign is Scorpio. Scorpio is about transformation. Taurus is not. So that's the difference with the polarity that we talk about each week. I always talk about the opposites. So it's very important. Not geared to fight. Taurus is physically oriented. They are nurturing and food and comfort, as I mentioned before. Taurus people most likely cannot live without comforts. A Scorpio person might enjoy the comforts just as much, being their opposite, but Scorpio would transform themselves philosophically or spiritually or emotionally and be able to maybe have more willpower to not indulge with all the physical, sensual, or sexual comforts, but not Taurus. It's very hard for Taurus to not have that. So Taurus people have to be careful with overindulgence with anything, with food, gambling, spending money, or saving too much money but then spending too much, that sort of thing. So Taurus people can often have a gruff exterior. This is also true of Taurus rising people. Taurus rising people can be very humorous and charming, but there's also something very tough about them. They want to appear as no nonsense, practical, stable people, but underneath it, Taurus is more emotional underneath than you think. If you know a Taurus person intimately, they're not always comfortable with that side of themselves. And then that causes issues, because if they're not comfortable with that softer side of themselves, because they're trying to have a stronger, tougher image to the world, especially Taurus men, it's at odds with the Venus nature. Tough, soft, tough, soft. You can be both, right? Men and women can be both. So it's not a PSA on how to be a person, but Taurus is both tough and soft. And anyone that knows Taurus people intimately will know that they are one or the other, and so are Taurus planets. Taurus planets can be underestimated because of the quietness and the serene and kind of calm exterior, because there's a lot going on underneath. Like Scorpio, there's a lot going on underneath, but there's also reserves of emotions that Taurus doesn't feel comfortable necessarily expressing, I think. So gruff exterior, the ego hides vulnerable traits. So, all our egos hide some vulnerability. Most of us don't want to be vulnerable all the time. But from an astrological point of view, that's the Earth. Earth is no nonsense, practical. It's more oriented to the sensation, the physical world, and the physical ground, and your senses and what you can touch, and not so much the sixth sense. But Taurus people, here's one thing, like every time all year when we talk about each sign each week, I'm going to talk about a gift that's a lot of the signs have that they don't acknowledge in themselves, that I see. So I'm a straight shooter. So some people are not going to like what I say. I'm not afraid to say that the signs have negative traits or they can misfire. That is human. Do I have negative traits? Oh, heck yeah. Do I have great traits? Yes. So, it's just like anything else. It's how we fire it. It's do we nail it, or do we misfire? But Taurus is one of those powerful, strong, fixed, massive signs that can do so much good, but can be so insecure, stubborn, and cranky when they don't get their way, someone touches their stuff, or they're just overly possessive or protective about something that doesn't need that kind of protecting. So use caution about throwing weight around. So Taurus people are big, and I don't mean just physically. They can be, but usually Taurus people have the strong shoulders and usually have strong necks. It's the neck and thyroid that Taurus rules. So, I've known small Taurus people that have had very strong shoulders, and the women too. So that's a big thing, is use caution. Taurus people kind of like to throw their weight around a little bit in kind of a quiet way. So Taurus people have to be aware, you should be aware that that causes some conflicts with people. If and when you do that, if you're dogmatic about your opinions or your will, if you're dogmatic, like a church throwing religion down someone's throat, you're gonna attract some opposition. That's definitely going to happen, especially from the other fixed signs, Aquarius, Leo, and Scorpio. Absolutely, that's going to happen. So Taurus people should be aware of that. They can be obviously very generous. Taurus people can be very generous, even though they like to save and they like to consolidate. But it can also be at the expense of being a little smug. So Taurus people born this week, coming off the Aries period, can feel like, well, look at all this I do for my work. I'm so reliable and I'm so generous and I'm so in control of everything. Why don't people appreciate me? So Taurus people have to be careful that they don't give just to get, and possibly become a little smug about that. So rigid systems, this goes back to the values and worth and what they expect. Taurus can be rigid. Any sign can be in a certain way, but Taurus people can be physically rigid and not about with their space. Barbara Streisand, I think she's notorious for obsessively going over things behind the scenes at her concerts about wanting certain foods, certain varieties, and getting very upset if everything's not in place like that. I think that's Barbara Streisand that did that. So that's important for Taurus. Their ways, they lead to quiet. So again, Taurus is doing a lot of that because Taurus ultimately wants peace and quiet. They're one of the biggest signs, I think, that want peace and quiet. So Taurus likes to have a good time. Taurus can go out to a show and they like music, but Taurus, when it comes down to it, most Taurus planets like to lay back, they like rest, they like sleep, and they want to get that quiet. But that's at the expense of resisting change. So their opposite sign, which is Scorpio, which we'll talk about, change and transformation is part of life. And that is very tough for Taurus. So change is something Taurus should work on. Lessons, let go. Just let go of some things, whether it's physical or people sometimes, or your friends or family. And sometimes you have to just let go a little bit. Taurus is, such a loyal sign, such a loyal and fixed energy that the Taurus loyalty can be mismatched. They might give it to the wrong people or someone that doesn't deserve it. And Taurus, if you deserve it, you should get it from the right people as well. So that's a lesson. Don't avoid conflict. That doesn't mean Taurus people have to be stubborn or unwilling to compromise, but engage in a little calm healthy conflict a little bit. Butt heads with people before things. Don't sit, Taurus, don't sit on everything. Does that make sense? So anyone that's known a Taurus intimately, you know how they sit on things. It's like, you're like, well, what's going on? What's the bull? The bull's grazing, but there's no animation, and I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, the bull will explode with laughter, excitement, or anger. So because of those reserves, Taurus has to learn to get it out in doses. So if Taurus can be engaged in healthy conflict a little more and be present. Don't just be, the Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo, all three earth signs, are reserved. They're reserved energies. They're yin. It's earth and it's yin, which is geared towards inside. And there's a lot going on with earth signs underneath. And we all know that, of the earth signs in our family, depending on the placements, the rulers and the placements there. But yeah, there's a lot going on underneath with Taurus. The Taurus will give you a nice little smile, or they'll just give you a stare, right? Have you ever seen that stare from a Taurus person when they're not happy? They may not yell at you, but they'll just look at you. They'll just give you one stare and you're like, okay, yep, I got it. It's the bull. So be present. So Scorpio 1 is the opposite. So in 6 months from now, we'll be talking about the first decan of Scorpio, which is the week of intensity. So Scorpio is more intense, it's more feelings, and it's transformative, but it can also be destructive. So the Taurus-Scorpio polarity is very powerful, but there's a lot going on underneath. And because they're fixed signs, they're fixed personalities. So the change is not easy, especially for Taurus. But Scorpio is usually more open to transformation because that interests them a little more. All right, so let's see what we're doing. We're about almost 50 minutes in. I'm finally using a mug that's not my Christmas mug. I think I've been using my Christmas mug up until like a couple weeks ago, and it's spring. So now I'm using the You Are the Best mug that I received. And you're the best for watching. If you're still watching me, if you're still listening to me go on and on and on at this point, I really appreciate it. And if you do the replay, and even if you watch 30 minutes or more, I consider that pretty amazing. So I thank you so much for that. So let's talk about the celebrities that are born this week. So every week when I talk about celebrities, I'm talking about not just any random Taurus person that has ever succeeded in their craft, and that's why we know their name. I'm talking about people that are born in this period. So these are Taurus 1 people that would be born between like today and May 2nd or 3rd. So this coming week. So we have Jerry Seinfeld. And this is an interesting thing. When I do research for the celebrities, I look up all these different sites, and I like to look at more than one picture of every celebrity that I find that I want to use. I don't like, there's always a stock photo, like whether it's on Wikipedia or IMDb, there's always usually an actor, actress, or musician has a stock photo, and you'll see that in different places. But I like to see a more natural photo, like another one, maybe from a concert or a show they did. And it's not as posed, it's a little more natural. And it's interesting to see the faces. Now, most of the Taurus people born this week look pretty serious to me. I looked up dozens and dozens and dozens of pictures. I probably just looked up 80 or 90 Taurus people born this week. I looked at all their faces. And what I didn't see is many Taurus people smiling this week. I didn't see many smiles, except for Jerry Seinfeld. He's so smiley and toothy, right? And I think Jerry is a double Taurus, Sun in Taurus ascending. So Jerry is a true Venusian, and he is funny. What is the deal? So Jerry's probably the most smiley Taurus I could find born this week for whatever reason. Jerry's just a smiley guy. Probably because he has more money than every other person, not only all of us, but more money than all these other people probably. I mean, how much money does, I mean, Jerry's got like a car collection of like Porsches or something. So, you know, I mean, how much money do you need, right? Casey Kasem, the late DJ that used to do top 40 radio in the 70s and 80s, he had a tagline that said, "Keep your feet on the ground, but keep reaching for the stars." Keep your feet on the ground. If that's not Taurus, I like it. I assume he wrote it. Gary Wright is the Dreamweaver guy, you know, that's on AM and pop radio, 70s, 80s pop radio. Dreamweaver, some really beautiful, sensual music, some really, really good music from him, and he passed away not too long ago. Great music. Roger Taylor is the drummer from the British group Duran Duran. And Duran Duran, not so much their newer music, but their older music from the late 70s and early 80s. The beats are amazing. The drumming is so strong and so tight that I'm sure, being a Taurus, they were very lucky to have his Taurus energy for the rhythm, because it's just amazing. Giancarlo Esposito, he's a great, accomplished actor. He's in so many things. He's in movies. He's in TV series. He was in Breaking Bad. And he was also he's in a new movie. Can't think of it. But he's a wonderful, wonderful actor. He's very quiet and very composed. But he does a lot with his eyes. He does a lot of those kind of Taurus stares to me. So he's really cool. Sheena Easton, the pop star who had a lot of success in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. Very sensual. She worked with Prince and many other songwriters. I saw her in concert once. And she was very good, very Taurian, and very pleasing. She has nice music. Marco Perroni, another musician, and he is responsible for the Adam and the Ants sound. So Adam Ant, when he was Adam and the Ants and he was coming up in Britain with that whole pop punk new wave movement of the late 70s and early 80s, he was a guitar player and very, very prominent in that scene, and gave Adam Ant's music has a lot of tribal drumming and music, and he was responsible for that, and Taurus is really good with that. Carolyn Jones, she was Morticia on the Addams Family, the actress. Look up a picture of her. My goodness, so stoic and serious. No smile. Like, I know she's playing Morticia, but still, like, wow. Bernie Madoff, probably the most negative celeb on this list, but I put him on here because he committed one of the biggest frauds in history, in the history of finances. And I don't know the rest of his chart. I haven't looked it up, and I should look up his aspects. But that's another thing. That's another point for Taurus 1 people born this week. Coming off Aries, Taurus takes that energy of Aries, and then Taurus takes Aries money and then says, all right, we're going to invest it, and now I'll take the interest and spend that, and I'll take my plan. So the plan is the interest. So with him, his was all about, you know, pyramid scheme and manipulating interest, and then he kept manipulating all these millions of dollars and taking this and moving them and stuff. So he had obviously an incredible skill with money, and he was able to manipulate probably in a very pleasing way, because Taurus could be very calm and pleasing about it, without setting off red flags to people. And he just did that. But one of the biggest fraudsters. So Taurus has to be careful with money. Mike Hogan, he is a musician from the Cranberries, the Irish group, the Cranberries. Really, really good rhythms and good bass. Again, very earthy. Ray Parker Jr., pop, R&B, funk guy from the 70s and 80s. He did the Ghostbusters theme. He had many radio hits in the 70s and 80s. Really cool, easygoing, sensual music. His music's a little inappropriate compared to today's standards. The lyrics and stuff, and the the objectification, and which a lot of that was in music back in the day. Not necessarily appropriate for modern day, but good music though. Very smooth and earthy and sensual. R.C. Retsky, the original musician from the original group Smashing Pumpkins from the late 80s and early 90s. And she was really integral to the Smashing Pumpkins sound, the rhythm with Billy Corgan said. Lou Gramm, unmistakable voice of Foreigner, the rock group Foreigner, hot-blooded, cold as ice, very strong, very earthy, very sensual, and very fixed in his lyrics. And Lou Gramm had battles with the other man, the co-writer. His name escapes me right now, but so very, very good music there. John Callis, another musician, was with the Human League, British group from the 70s and 80s. And then actor Kevin James, he did Paul Blart Mall Cop. He's a stand-up comic. He obviously uses his physicality and his weight for his humor. But he's very kind of, streetwise and earthy, I think, with his humor and his roles. But in his acting, he's a little underrated. I think he's a little smarter than people give him credit for. And he could probably do more than he's doing. But he's pretty good. And then Lizzo, I think she's going to be 38, I think, tomorrow. So the pop R&B songstress Lizzo, and not only is she kind of a cool, hip person, a 30-something millennial, but she's also an accomplished musician. So that's really cool. It's cool to see some of these younger people coming up that sing, that actually know how to play instruments. That's respect. She's a musician, and not just someone that just goes in a studio and does something in a mediocre way. So, and she's got some weight. Her music has weight to her, in addition to her physical appearance, which is substantial. But she's cool. Ella Fitzgerald, great. I think I mentioned her last week. She can kind of be a cusper or an early Taurus, depending on how you look at it. But she's one of the, she carved out kind of that soul genre with some of those other ladies I mentioned a few weeks ago. But she's awesome. Giorgio Moroder is an epic producer, and he worked with all sorts of bands in the 70s and 80s and did mixes for bands. He did music, and then he did remixes for dance DJs in like the 90s and 2000s. And he worked with Blondie, and he worked with some British new wave groups, and he did a lot of disco, like Italian disco. But such an amazing touch with the rhythm. Again, Taurus is physical. Taurus is the body. And Taurus, that's another thing. I've never met a Taurus person that didn't love music. Like, think of a Taurus person you knew or know. Do they not have a stronger than average appreciation of music? They probably do. I mean, they're people that either go to concerts, religiously, or play music religiously, or very, very strong listeners of music. Their Taurus person wouldn't be a superficial, casual listener usually of music or the arts. Taurus would be kind of all in on it. It's definitely something with them. And Kate Pearson, I did a profile of her. You can check out. I did a video last year for Taurus One. I can't believe that was a year ago already. Talking about her. And she is one of the prominent co-founders of the new wave group, the B-52s, which is quirky. She's one of the more quirky Taurus people, obviously, on this list. And she's also very smiley. So Jerry and Kate just seem to be kind of the happiest Taurus people from this week. That I don't know if it's seriousness or what, but I would love to know the comments. If you know a Taurus person in your life, a family or friend or a coworker, do they smile often? And if they do they have a nice earthy Taurus smile to them? It's, because Taurus can be serious, Taurus can be silly, but usually Taurus is, solid in who they are. But Kate Pearson is awesome. And she is also very, very much, she was very much a perfectionist. Even though the music of B-52s is kind of freewheeling, she was very, very instrumental in making sure that they were successful and stuck to it. And they're still doing it. They're still touring, and she's still very active. So that's wonderful. So this was a tough week to find celebrities, just like the Aries 3 week. I think the third decan of Aries was really tough for me too. But this one there's some good people here. And then there were a lot of older, like really old celebrity type people that I found, like way, way back, that I didn't seem to be as relevant in talking about, these traits for Taurus 1. So this is the Taurus period right now up until the May 2nd or 3rd, and then we're going to go into Taurus 2. So we'll be talking more about that, and we'll be talking about how Taurus 2 is similar to Taurus 1, but yet different, because each period is colored by a different ruler. Well, that's another thing. This week is double Venus. So they're people that are ruled by Venus, and their sub-ruler is Venus. So it's like Venus times 2. All right. So here's tonight's chart for New York Standard Time. And here we have the Sun in Taurus over here. And the biggest thing right now is this line here is the Sun square Pluto aspect. So I know all astrologers are going to be writing about it and talking about it. And it's moving away from Pluto now, obviously, because this is at 7 and Pluto is stationary at 2. And Pluto will be in Aquarius for a long time and will be moving extremely slowly, for months and years to come. So also over here, we have this focal point of the Earth in Scorpio, which is also part of that square and opposition. It's square to Pluto and it's opposing Scorpio. And then up here, this is just transitory. This is the midheaven at Leo. So there's nothing really going on with Leo because this changes. So in a few hours, that will change. So if a baby's born tonight, he or she would have Libra rising with Leo up here at the focal point of the public. And then this baby would have this opposition square configuration, which is not easy. You're talking about Taurus and Aquarius, Sun and Pluto. Sun is identity and life force, and Pluto is transformation, control, power. So with the Sun square Pluto, it depends on whether you look at that like kind of mundane astrology as far as an event. If you looked at this in a collective way, like all of us, the energy is power control, or is it an event that you're looking at that happened maybe at 7 p.m., or a country, looking at it in terms of a country behavior, or if you're just looking at someone's personal chart, or even a relationship, even let's say, someone they just met at 7 p.m. or they were married late tonight in Vegas or something, and they were met and they had the marriage chart had this aspect, very strong, and needs balance as far as possible power struggles. I mean, anything with Pluto is going to shake things up. So Taurus people and Taurus planets that move through here, this Sun is at 7. Next week it's going to be another week farther. We're going to be right in the middle of Taurus. We're going to be halfway through the Taurus period. But of course, the Jupiter and Uranus are in later degrees of Taurus, but they're moving slower. but the sun is going to conjunct Uranus and Jupiter in addition to squaring Pluto. And all of that Taurus energy is ruled by Venus in Aries, which is not the best placement, in my opinion, first in astrology. Venus in Aries, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast live stream. Venus in Aries for a Taurus person, that could actually cause impulsivity in the Taurus person. A Taurus with a Venus in Aries, in my opinion, would be more impulsive than an Aries with Venus in Taurus, which would be like a mutual reception. So that's why it's so important to know the Taurus person or the Taurus event, if you're looking up, or the Taurus country, to know the Venus sign, the house, the aspects, and what's going on, because that gives you the fine tuning. It's not enough to just know it's Taurus or whatever degree it is. If you look at the fixed stars or the constellations or whatever, whether you're doing tropical or sidereal astrology or Vedic astrology, you really have to dig a little deeper. But Venus in Aries is not comfortable. Venus is not comfortable in Aries. Doesn't mean there aren't good qualities, but the Venus in Aries people that I've known, especially the Taurus, tend to be a little impulsive, especially with money. I've known several that have been very not the greatest savers, even though they were Taurus. So you have to take that with a grain of salt with the Venus. Carolyn says, interesting insight about Taurus carrying forth the energy of Aries. Thank you. Yeah, I came up with that this morning when I was researching, because, Aries is the ram, Taurus is the bull. They're both animals. And Taurus can get things done at their own pace. Taurus people get things done. They can accomplish a lot. Taurus people can be very productive. They can, they can accomplish things. And again, they can surprise people, because some people may think they're slower or lazy or more methodical. But it really is bringing that Aries energy and then kind of making things happen and saying, well, I'm not going to give up. and sticking to it. But this is a good time. The Cancer and Capricorns planets right now, they're intercepted. There's nothing really going on with them right now. The moon is in Sagittarius tonight, which is good for fun, and that's a little different than the Taurus. And obviously we still have Mercury in Aries. It's not retrograde anymore, which is good. The node is still in Aries, and then we have a late Mars Pisces and late Neptune Pisces. So those will be going into Aries. Saturn is in the middle of its period of Pisces still. So before I go, I wanted to mention, because a lot of people when they get readings from tarot people or astrologers, people will often ask about cycles, right? Depending on what age you are and what you're going through in your work, your personal life, or your marriage, or your love life. And there are definite cycles that astrologers and tarot and mediums can pinpoint. They're not exact, but they are. There's almost always something that happens in certain critical cycles. So, for example, if you or someone you know is born in 1994, that person's turning 30 this year, or they're already 30. So they're going to have an early degree of Saturn in Pisces. So now we're at Saturn in 16 of Pisces. Most of them have already basically completed their Saturn return, which started somewhere around 28 or 29. So if someone is turning 30 later in the year, like October through December, they're going to be finishing up their Saturn return soon. But it's basically done if you're born in 94, which means you are growing up. Saturn is forcing you and pushing you to grow up. If you are turning 30 this year, or even 31, you cannot afford to be childish. You can't be a child. You are a young, formed adult. So if in your 20s you didn't feel like being an adult, and now you're 30, it's going to feel like it's going to feel like a big push and a big jump. If you're born in 95 and you're turning 29 this year, your Saturn is even earlier in Pisces. You're not quite done, but you're almost done. So depending on what your degree is, you have a little of the residue of the Saturn return. So a 29-year-old person this year might be ending a relationship, ending a marriage, or starting a new job or going back to school. That's so common with 29, 30, and 31-year-olds. Think about it. If you're that age, look at your life and look at the changes you've had. It's almost always there. And then if you're born in 96, you're turning 28. You are just starting your Saturn cycle. So you would have, I'd have to look it up, but it could be very, very late Aquarius Saturn, or like a very early 0, 1, or 2 Pisces Saturn. And then you're going to move. It's going to be a while. So if you're turning 28, you probably have another year and a half or year and a quarter to finish up your return. So again, you're just starting to feel the itchiness of, oh my God, life is forcing me to grow up somehow, either by changing a job, changing a career, starting a relationship or a marriage, or ending a relationship or a marriage. It's so common. If you were high school sweethearts at 18, maybe it's not happening at 28 to 30. There's been enough time to realize that it's not going to stick. Or if you're starting something new at 28 or 30, then when you're 35, that's going to be the next cycle. You're going to know 7 years later whether what you started now, what you planted the seeds now between 28 and 30, if it has the strength to go past that 35. So that would be 96. So if you're like someone born like 97 or 98, they'd be turning 26 or 27. They're not quite there yet. So they're just coming up on the cusp of the late 20s and the Saturn return, but you're not quite there yet. So enjoy your time a little more. So we'll be talking more about, over the coming months, I'll be talking more about the transits and the Saturn returns with ages, with the generations, because that's really, really important. Because sometimes astrologers will look at a chart and we just read something and we read the energy and we say, oh, this is what is going to happen, or this is what is really going on. But you have to really consider the age of the person. And of course, some 30-year-olds are very mature and worldly, and some 30-year-olds act like they're 20, right? So, it just depends. About maturity is a huge thing. Now, we're not all always mature all the time, but generally speaking, if we're growing and changing, we're getting more mature. It happens, and that's happening to especially the 1994 people turning 30. Woo! It's a big year, and it's a little uncomfortable as well. And I know a couple people that are going through, a couple guys, and it's not easy for them. They're fighting it. They're fighting like having to grow up and put on kind of an adult hat. It's not easy. 30 is not easy for some people. Turning 30 for some people is harder than 40 or 50 that I've talked to, because 30 is like losing that childhood and that adolescence for real. If you're 25, you haven't really lost it. But 30 is like, whoa, my 20s is gone, sort of thing. But I think we'll wrap it up here. My voice is getting a little tired. And thank you so much for tuning in. I know there's Carolyn's here, and I know there's one or two other people that came in and came out. I appreciate it. You can catch the replay. Again, my live streams are weekly right now. I changed them from Saturdays to Fridays at 7 here on YouTube. And check me out on X, Astro_Scoop. I post there weekly, and I post my videos there as well here on YouTube. And on Instagram, I'm Astroscoop7. And I post, I just generally do a quick post of the sign, and then I do a link to my video, which brings you right back to here, which is YouTube. But don't forget to subscribe, because I still have over 80% of you that are watching these are not subscribing. So please, please, put your trust in the channel. It's free. Subscribe, and let me earn your view, and let me earn some future views. I'd like to do that. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. We'll be talking more Taurus next week. Happy birthday to all Taurus people. And if I said anything a little bit negative, just realize that I do appreciate the earthy, beautiful earthy qualities of Taurus people, especially when you all are feeling good and secure. Taurus is a wonderful, earthy, strong, supportive. The bull is beautiful. The bull is beautiful. So one love to Taurus people. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll see all of you next week. Have a good night.